Welcome back, folks, to another episode of A Tryst with Staycraft. It's your host, Teresa Kuruvilla, managing editor and podcast host at A Tryst with Staycraft, managed by Project Staycraft, a youth run nonpartisan policy think tank. Joining me today is yet another revolutionary figure, Ms. Palvi Jain, a practitioner in the social development sector with over 10 years of experience of working in more than 15 states across India and internationally. She is currently leading the Youth Ownership of Digital Health project at Path India Country Office, New Delhi. Pallavi has extensively worked across several thematic areas within the development sector, including agriculture, health, gender, and other advocacy issues. She has worked with the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers, Welfare, several state governments, international organizations, and NGOs. Ms. Palvi Jain has a strong background in communication and has delved into adopting the SBCC approach, development of ICT tools and application of human-centered design approach, partnership development, stakeholder management, strategy building, and project management. Pallavi has dual master's degree in communication from the London School of Economics and University of Southern California. She has also been an entrepreneur and was the founder of the Change Designers. With these incredible achievements, Miss Palvi Jain, it is an absolute honor to have you at this episode of A Tryst with Staycraft.
Thank you so much, Teresa, for that introduction and a pleasure to be here with you today.
All right, so in this episode, we'll be taking a very unique perspective of how digital health and artificial intelligence have been integrated into our public health systems, and what does this approach lie for our country? Now, my first question to you is, in your experience, what are the biggest barriers to adopting digital tools in healthcare, especially in marginalized or rural communities?
Thank you, Teresa. That's a very pertinent and relevant question. Given that AI and the integration of technology in healthcare is something which is accelerating, and we have newer and more tools, coming in, on an everyday basis. Particularly in the context of India and other developing countries, I think there are several key barriers, right from digital literacy, lack of internet connectivity in rural areas, affordability of devices, and also distrust in technology due to limited awareness, by people. Moreover, language diversity and gender dynamics often prevent, certain groups, whether it's women or children, from accessing a lot of these tools. So I think these are certain issues which need to be addressed, and there actually needs to be, I would say, a multi-pronged approach, combined with capacity building, infrastructure development, community trust building that needs to be done in order for these tools to be adopted by the marginalized community particularly, and for them to penetrate within the last mile.
Well, that's a really good, promising start to this episode. Now, you've mentioned the adoption of multiple approaches. Now, what, according to you, would be the strategies that you would suggest to bridge the digital divide in the country in accessing healthcare technologies?
So, Teresa, this is something which can be seen from, I will say, from multiple perspectives, right from consumers like you and I, right from, the healthcare providers. So, there are multiple angles to it. Couple of broad-based strategies which I feel that could be developed, to overcome some of the challenges that we just talked about, include, strengthening of infrastructure. This could, include expanding internet and mobile connectivity in underserved areas, for instance. I would say second thing would be, localizing content, developing tools and platforms in regional languages with simple interfaces. I'll give you an example. So this was a couple of years back, and I was working, on a project in one of the states in central India, and we went to we were at one of the centers, with an Anganwadi worker, and there was a chart with pictures of fruits and vegetables, and it said amrud, right? And we asked the women there that, do you eat amrud? Do you know what an amrud is? And they were blank. They did not have anything to say. And when we probed further, we realized that they actually don't understand amrud as an amrud. It is locally, it was called as jamphal. Okay, and that is a terminology which they understand. But unfortunately, this is not something which was, being used in the local communication that was, being done. So, again, adapting and localizing the context is something which is very, very important. The third thing I would say is perhaps, capacity building and training communities. Say if there is any use of technology, say for a healthcare worker, then how can they actually use the tools that have been devised for them? Similarly, if there is a patient, if they want to book appointments, if they want to access more quality healthcare, how do they actually use these interfaces? So, conducting digital literacy programs, especially with targeting, women and youth, I think that is something which is very, very important. Then I think, of course, our government is doing a lot when it comes to, AI and health in particular. Perhaps, it's also time for us to think that, can we encourage more collaborations between, the government and the private sector to subsidize these technologies, right? A lot of these technologies are currently free of cost. But, again, from a more long-term perspective, can we take a more subsidized route for this as well? Yeah, so I think these are a couple of strategies which can, perhaps be adopted. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's a very, very detailed structure and strategy that you have mentioned. But the thing is, in India, regardless of how much we advance in technology, there are still pockets of the population that do not know the head or tail of accessing or even applying this technology in their daily lives. So, according to you, how can digital health tools be made more inclusive, particularly for people with low literacy or technical skills, especially in a country like India?
Great question. So, you mentioned affordability. So, in fact, affordability and accessibility, I would say, are two pillars which form the legs of adopting any kind of technological interventions. So, as I mentioned that ensuring that there are no cultural barriers, when it comes to, adopting these technologies. People are comfortable with the use of technology. So, right now there are so many people who are still, using your feature phones. So just the fact that, they are, say, probably switching from a feature phone to a smartphone today, are they comfortable enough to, even use technology, let alone, actually deep diving into, technical aspects of, whether, say, it is, uploading their personal health records, or how to book an appointment on an app. How comfortable are they? Are we designing technology from the perspective of the user? That, I think, is a question which really needs to be addressed. Similarly, we've spoken about digital literacy. Are people comfortable in understanding the language that is used, in any kind of technology which is disseminated? So I think these are a couple of things, right, from affordability, access, digital literacy, ensuring that, cultural barriers are not there. Things are, made from a very colloquial aspect instead of, making it jargon heavy. I think these are a couple of things which need to be looked into, especially for such a vast country like India, where language changes where dialect changes every kilometer. I think it's very important for us to pay special attention to these things. And in my experience, I think a couple of ways in which this can be done is when we really start focusing on the audience for which we are developing these new tools and technologies. We can't, while developing any kind of AI or any kind of tech relating products, we can't really forget the problem statement that we're trying to forget. I think that is one of the biggest problems, I would say, that actually exist. So keeping your audience at the center while devising any kind of solutions is very important, and actually, adopting a human centered design approach. and a more community-centric approach is, I think, the way it should be.
All right. So I think that's a really, really good observation. And I think we're already on track of ensuring that affordability and accessibility become the core strengths in devising better methods of accessing digital health and the public system. With the work you're doing with Path, how do you intend to foster an equitable and effective transformation in healthcare?
Thank you for that question. So currently, I am leading a project called as Yodh, which stands for Youth Ownership of Digital Health, and it is a part of the digital health vertical within Path. So, at Yodh, we are actually focusing on building a global community of young professionals who are working in the digital health sector, and we're actually trying to get these budding professionals to be a part of a network that can help them build their knowledge and skill sets. It can help them network with people globally, who are working in the digital health sector, and we can actually help them build their capacities and their networks. So, we are hoping through the Yodh initiative that we will actually be able to firstly provide the youth access to networks across the world, so that by the time they're in positions of leadership, or are probably in mid levels of their careers, they already have a network of people, they already have a community support, that they can lean on when it comes to connecting, creating, and collaborating on several of the health around several health initiatives. The other thing is, actually looking at the power of collaboration. So digital health is, I would say, is a field which has really accelerated, especially after COVID. Um, and during COVID, what we also saw was how the youth came together in navigating across so many aspects of COVID. Whether it meant use of social media to send out information, whether it meant helping the elders use of with the use of technology, and so on and so forth. So the idea is that how can we actually bring the youth together so that they can collaborate on new and more innovations that are happening in the sector. So we are really trying to leverage through this community the power of connect, create, and collaborate, with wanting to create a network and capacity building initiatives through Yodh. So we're already doing that through several initiatives that we have. We have a webinar series, a podcast series. We have an ambassador program through which we are trying to create community leaders. We are currently there in over 30 countries with more than 900 members. So we are really, really trying to harness on the power of youth and create a network of practices which can, maybe go a long way and help build a sustainable community.
Well, I really like that you've touched upon about the more marginalized communities in the country and how they are also very much involved in this process of integrating AI into the public health systems, just like everybody else. Now, what should be the role of governments in ensuring data privacy and security in health tech innovations, according to you?
So currently, and again, this is something which I say from, the several of the conversations that I've had with people, who are into technology development, or, who are working in the field of AI. So right now, when it comes to privacy, um, having any kind of privacy around usage of these apps, or collecting of data, that is something which often comes at the back end. You people are not developing these technologies with the sensibility that ensuring privacy and security in health tech innovations, should be in the driving seat. So I think that approach itself needs to change. So right now, what happens is that if you've created an app or any kind of technology, the last question probably is that, oh, what is it that we can do to ensure that the data is secure, or people feel that we are able to build trust amongst our users. That is something which comes towards the end. But I think we need to go in with that approach, whether it is any kind of LLMs that are being developed, any kind of the the softwares that are being developed. I think it needs to be done from that approach. And then I think making your users aware of educating people on the use of the importance of data privacy through local initiatives. I think that is something which is very important. So I would say both in terms of awareness on the importance of data privacy for the consumer, at the same time as responsible program and tech people who are actually creating these innovations. I think we need to ensure that data privacy and security is being taken care of.
All right, so there are multiple stakeholders involved in the management of public health systems, and there could be more potential ones as we integrate AI into this. Now, my last question before we wrap up this recording is, in what ways can youth be engaged in the development and implementation of digital health solutions in our country, according to you?
I think that's a very, very relevant question. I think this is this is important because I think our youth have become more and more aware today, and they themselves are questioning and wanting to be a part of the decision making process, and especially because as a part of Yoda, I interact with, so many youth across the world, that it really is an eye opener for me to know that the youth are actually wanting to be a part of the consultative or the decision making process. So I think first of all, it's very important for us to understand that why is it important for the youth to be a part of this decision making process today. So I think the youth is the future, right? Especially when we're talking about AI and technology. Right now, we are just in the development phases, right? At the end of the day, it is this youth which is also going to be consumers and users of a lot of the technologies that we're developing today, and be a part of this evolution process. So to be able to have their input, to understand that what is it that they want, is very, very important. So I think it's important to give them a seat when it comes to really taking ownership of what we're developing today, which will have an impact in the future. So I think the youth holds a lot of promise today, which will have an impact in the future as well. And I think technology is something which comes more naturally and more innately to the youth and to the youngsters of today. So why don't we have them at the forefront of representation, at the forefront of innovation? So I think this is something which needs to be addressed and which needs to be realized, and probably this is the right stage for us as developers, to understand the importance of the youth.
What a fitting ending to this very special podcast recording. Thank you so much, Pallavi, for ending this recording on such a good note, especially noting that the youth have such an innate role to play, knowing that we are the generation that grew up with the technology that we hope to harness for the greater good. With that, we come to the end of this great podcast episode. We got to really decipher the intricacies of the public health system and how AI is coming at the forefront and making systems quite affordable and accessible. And we hope that they are integrated in such a way that even the most remote pockets have access to the benefits and the greater good of artificial intelligence. Moreover, we got to understand the various stakeholders involved in this process of integration, how data privacy and various other policies ensure that the data of patients are safeguarded. We also got to understand what would it take to ensure that this AI reaches pockets of the nation where there is far little literacy and technical skills adopted. So thank you so much, Pallavi, for sharing your insights. And thank you so much for everything that you do at Path. And we can't wait to see what the future holds for you.
Thank you so much, Teresa. It was a pleasure having this conversation with you today, and wishing you and the project Statecraft all the very best. Thank you.
The honor is all mine. And folks, we have concluded yet another incredible episode of A Truth with Staycraft. I'm your host, Teresa Kuruvilla, signing off.